Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cosmic Force. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Riganti. Thank you all for joining us tonight on the Utini Podcast Network. Tonight's going to be a fun show. We are getting into our very first roundtable of the history of the Cosmic Force, and so we are all very excited here. Let me introduce you to the rest of the team, starting with, of course, Emma. Emma, how are we doing this week?
What's up, Tyler? What's up, everybody? I am super excited for this week. First ever roundtable, starting with such a great volume, such a great character. I'm really pumped.
Yes, and you know who else is pumped? Our regular archaeologist himself, Caleb. Caleb is in costume tonight. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. Yeah, I would just baited right before going on. It's like suit and tie, but wait, I have the jacket, I have the hat. Might as well both go in on this Indiana Jones theming. So let's go all out. I'm ready.
Mike, we definitely have the hat for you, and we have the jacket to go with it. So we're really glad that Caleb's able to pull through on that. And then also back after a week of extra work, we're glad you're back here tonight. Jacob, how you doing?
Wait, I'm not Jared Mays. Is that? Are you sure? No,
you're not Jared Mays. You're not stealing the thunder. You're not throwing out the entire rundown at the beginning of the show. How are you doing?
True. I'm pretty good. Not too bad. Very big thanks to Jared for coming in. Honestly, pretty last minute to save me from field work and do a stellar job in running the show last week. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm definitely ready to talk about Dr. Aphra with you all.
he did admit after he said yes that he didn't realize that it was a Wednesday night show, and then that was probably something that he should have realized before he agreed to come. But for the rest of you, we do go live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night. Jared, make sure you remember that, Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. If you can't join us live, that's okay. These videos are up on our YouTube channel in perpetuity, and we will soon be on all of your favorite podcast stations. We are part of the Utini Podcast Network. And what is Utini, you ask, if this is your first time? Well, Utini is a community of positive fans that share our love for the greater Star Wars universe, novels, comics, audio dramas, and everything in between. If you love Star Wars and you have been looking for a community of people to share the love with in a positive way, well, Chewie, you're home. You can find the link to our Discord server with almost 1,000 members in the show notes. I think somebody's going to pop it over in the chat there in a second as well. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, whereas for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini Podcast Network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement events. So, now that we've got that out of the way, we are going to dive into our first segment of the week, and that is our weekly pull list. Jacob, what do we have out in stores this week?
Yeah, so we just have one comic book out this week. It's Dr. Aphra, not the one we're talking about tonight. Dr. Aphra 2020, number 9, The Injured Job, Part 4, and Possibilities. The writer is Alyssa Wong. The pencils are by Min-Kyu Jung. The cover, again, is by Sway. Inker is Victor Olazaba, and colorist Rochelle Rosenberg, with letters by Joe Caramanga. So that's the only comic book out this week. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm sure our resident comic expert extraordinaire Emma has already gotten to it by this point.
You are correct, and it was really, really awesome. I've got to say, like, got a lot of good High Republic connections in there. I won't say anything more than that. I really liked it.
Aphra's the one current book that I'm not current on because I wasn't able to get out to my comic store this week to get caught up on it. So I'm looking forward to finally getting around to this one.
Yeah, it's great. Great Aphra as always.
All right, so we will go ahead. Thank you, Jacob, for giving us our weekly pull list. So with that out of the way, we're going to get into what we're loving this week, and we'll start with our art of the week. I'm going to go first, and as fitting as it is, I chose Dr. Aphra number 1 from 2016, and I chose this is kind of, Jacob, would you say this is kind of like the prelude, because this kind of happens, at least in the trade paperback, before the title page. Right,
it's kind of like a cold open in the comic book.
Yeah, I chose this. This was penciled by Kev Walker, and I chose this because this was my first introduction to Dr. Aphra, and it was this sort of panel here that was like, okay, we've got somebody, we already have somebody dying. We haven't even seen the title screen yet. This is going to be something different. So that's my art of the week. Emma, what about you?
So my art of the week is from a Legends comic, believe it or not. It's from Django Fett Open Seasons, issue number 3, with pencils by Ramon Box, inks by Raul Fernandez, and colors by Brad Anderson. And I've been doing a little bit of reading this week for something I will tell you about a little later. But here we have Django Fett in some really awesome, like, gray and red armor color scheme. Really, really cool. He's escaping from a palace, and I don't know, read the book. It's so good. I won't say anything about it, but I was shocked at how much I really loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. I rarely do that unless it's like fantastic. It was really good, and this art is beautiful. So Caleb, how about you?
You're not the only one going back on Legends. I guess we can blame Jared for that one. So this one comes from the Tales of the Jedi number 2, art by Chris Cassette and Mike Barrino. Like, just looking at this, you would not be able to tell, hey, wait, that's Star Wars. It has 2 beast drivers from Onderon riding essentially pterodactyls shooting guns. It's just like this weird metal cover sort of thing from the Tales of the Jedi, and it's awesome because Onderon is something that shows up in a lot of other medias. You know, there was very good level in the Knights of the Old Republic 2. There was a whole mini series of it on the Clone Wars. Yeah, the whole series where pretty much took off of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Really wild series, and that introduced Saw Gerrera. Anyway, this is the first time we get to see Onderon in all of its weird like Beast Rider glory. There, just tons of guns there.
Yeah, you've got to love Legends. You don't get this in the current run of comics. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is really unique.
Oh, definitely. And I think I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I do like how wild and how many choices they could take with this with the medium they had here. Jacob, what are you reading?
So I'm currently reading a lot of stuff, but this is from Poe Dameron, issue number 26, with art by Angel Unzueta Galarza. I really like this. So the majority of the Poe Dameron miniseries is about his time before The Force Awakens, but then like the last arc kind of tells about he's like recapping his adventure to Finn and Rey, about like his time leading up and him crashing on Jakku and all that stuff. So it's just like this beautiful page showing like him meeting Lor Santeca, talking with BB-8, and like just with the Falcon kind of being this whole centerpiece. This really struck me when I got to the page. So I love it. And it's definitely my art of the week for this week. So that's mine. Caleb, do you have our community submission that we can talk about?
We do, actually. This one comes from our very own Cad Bin, aka at WC on DB. Was a BWC on Twitter. Just a really great sort of clash of the.
There we go.
There it is, Titans. This comes from Star Wars 2015, issue number 6, and shows the young Luke Skywalker dueling up against a Boba Fett. Like, I hadn't read that series in a long time, but once they posted that one, I knew, oh wait, I know exactly where that comes in. That's a really like dynamic moment of them fighting in Old Ben's house as they're trying to figure out, Luke's there to try to figure out where Old Ben came from and learn some shy stuff. Boba Fett's there just to take out Luke, and it's just a really drag out match there. That was really fun and really entertaining. So that's a really good choice, Cad Ben. So with that, we have some free. If you want to be featured here, go ahead and hit us up on Discord. We have free comic codes that we're willing to give away. So not only do you get the glory of having your submission here on the Cosmic Force, but you will get rewarded by having a little extra free comic code of your choice. So just hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Discord, and we'll make sure to reach out to you and keep you involved.
And that goes for Chirps last week too. We actually forgot to mention that last week. But Chirps, if you're, I believe you were the one who submitted the art of the week last week that was selected. So make sure you reach out to us on Discord as well, and we'll make sure we get you your free code. We actually just updated that list today, so we've actually got a good number of comics available to you now. So yeah. Awesome. We really like it when the community gets involved. So we're really hoping that we get some more great submissions. We've had great submissions the last 2 weeks. So make sure you guys keep it up. So now we're kind of gonna get into what we're reading. And unfortunately, I've as much as I made up last week, I wasn't able to make up. I completely slept on it this week. I did read Bounty Hunters number 11 because luckily I had the digital code for that, but I wasn't able to get out. I was, unfortunately, my wife and I, we were in quarantine this week. We did not have COVID, but somebody that we were close to did, and so we did the responsible thing, and we decided to quarantine for the last week, and so I wasn't able to get to my local comic store. So I've only read the digital version of Bounty Hunters 11, and I'm hoping now that I'm out of quarantine that I can get to the store this coming week and support my local store, and be able to catch up, because I know as much as I was able to make up on Emma last week, she's now got another week ahead of me. So Emma, what did you read this week?
Yeah, so first of all, everybody, be like Tyler and be responsible. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you did the responsible thing and quarantined. You are a model citizen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We try.
Yes, absolutely. So I've been reading a lot of Legends comics this week, and that is because I'm going to be on Legends Look Back tomorrow. We're going to be talking about some Legends comics. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the full list, but I'll just name two. I've got Jango Fett seasons, like I was talking about earlier with my art of the week, and Dark Empire, because we all need to talk about Naked Palps a little more. And now that I've read it for the first time, I understand the true horror that people experience in reading that. It hurt my eyeballs. It was pretty brutal to read. I didn't realize exactly how many pages that Naked Palps was involved in Dark Empire for. So that was shocking and a little offensive. But we'll be talking about those comics and others as well. So catch us there tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern, right here on YouTube. I'm really looking forward to it. But Caleb, what have you been reading?
As it's from the art of the week, like Tyler, no, not that I've got sick or anything. I just kind of had to slow down a lot because I blazed through a lot of comics. I was going through Dr. Aphra, but I hit that point where it's like, oh no, if I read too much of this, then I'll have none left. So I started like, okay, time to hit the brakes, time to branch out. So yeah, I've been reading some of the Tales of the Jedi, and really enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. So good recommendation when after you finished our Foundational 5, definitely check that out. Of course, I caught up on the first couple reissues of Aphra because I want to be ready for what's happening tonight. Speaking of being ready, Jacob, what have you been reading?
So I went on a bit of a tear last week. I think I just counted. I read somewhere around like 30 to 40 issues in the past week.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I was in a hotel for work this past week, so in the evening didn't have a whole lot to do, so I just read comic books. Jared had talked a lot about Dark Empire last week, and I just kind of got the itch, so I read both Dark Empire 1 and 2, all 12 issues between Wednesday night and Thursday night, so I can participate in their roundtable. And yeah, it's a lot. Emma was talking about how crazy Dark Empire 1 is, and Dark Empire 2 takes that to 11 times 5. It's bad. It's okay. It's not bad. It is just very, very Legendsy.
It's 90s bad, which means it's good.
It's like Palpatine has a space gun that shoots smart bullet hyperspace missiles through. Yeah, it's wild. I'm glad I read it, but that's something. So yeah, I read that. Yeah, Tom Veitch writer, Cam Kennedy with the really cool watercolor art. So yeah, I blame Jared again. And then yeah, my other thing, I've just been doing a chronological read through of everything to try and get caught up. Not chronological, but release order read through. So my current place is I'm around July 2018, so I'm about halfway through all the Marvel stuff right now. So couple more months, maybe I'll be done, but we'll see.
Eric in the chat says Dark Empire is about to be the most read piece of media by all of UTini, and if it's it'll probably be the most concurrently read, and it might even be up there with Lost Stars now. It's actually kind of funny because I have 3 kids. My oldest is 10, and so they're probably still up. They might even be listening downstairs in the room, but last Thursday after the show and Jared talking about Naked Palps, my 10-year-old comes up to me and says, Dad, can I read Dark Empire so I can see Naked Palps? And it's just, I was like, I don't know what was the bigger, I had so many mixed emotions because he's like, he wants to read Star Wars comics, but he now knows about Naked Palps, and he didn't want to read Dark Empire. He actually used the phrasing Naked Palps. So I have Jared to thank for that. And I told him that in our Slack chat, and apparently I made his day. So you're welcome.
He wants to read it for all the wrong reasons.
Right. I mean, so Dark Empire has a very special place in the Utini, the Utini world right now. Yeah. So that is going to do it for what we are reading. So we are going to take a very short merchandise break, and then when we come back on the other side, we are going to talk about Dr. Aphra. We'll be right back. right. So as Emma was talking about how amazing that hoodie, which hoodie were you talking about?
It's the Utini hoodie. It's seriously the best hoodie. It's really soft, and I'm not just saying that because we want you to buy our stuff. It's like it's really good. I
But
have like 3 of them.
We do want you to buy our stuff at
That
the
too.
same time.
That too.
Now,
If it's
eventually, we will be getting Cosmic Force content out there, so keep your eye open for that, right? Question mark.
Yes.
Yeah, if it's not
Yes.
already here, it is coming. Yes. Stay tuned.
So after let's go ahead and get into the main reason that we are all here tonight, and that is Dr. Aphra, trade paperback number 1. This is a very unique book. And before we're gonna have Caleb kind of get into the synopsis of it and kind of give you some interesting piece of information about the characters and everything, but we kind of want to give you a little bit of background. So let's go in the Wayback Machine and kind of go back to 2016. This was the first series since Star Wars Return to Marvel that focused on a comic book specific character that was not in the movies. The first issue of Dr. Aphra was released on December 7th, 2016. For reference, Star Wars number 1 was issued January 14th of 2015. So we're talking about 2 years from Marvel's first reprint to when Dr. Aphra came out. The trade paperback was released on June 21st in 2017. The writer for this is Kieron Gillen. He is known for Image and Marvel books, and some of his other Star Wars work includes Darth Vader 2015, and then he also wrote for the Star Wars mainline in 2018 through 2019. The penciler is Kev Walker. He's also, in addition to Aphra, he's has penciled some Marvel Avengers titles. He's also one of the inkers. He's the inker for issues 1 through 3. Mark Deering is the inker for issues 4 through 6. He's also had some additional Star Wars work. He did some ink for Age of Republic and the Age of Rebellion. I believe that was the Padme and Leia issues of those. And the color artist is Antonio Fabela, and he does most of his work for Image and Marvel. So each time we do these roundtables, we're going to take a little bit of time and mention each of the creatives behind it, because like we said before, we really want to support not just the writers, but we want to make sure that we're supporting all of the creative people behind these books. So if they have some Star Wars, we encourage you to go there, and then once you've read up on that, expand out to some of the other titles that they have. But because this was the first real comic book centric character, it really allowed for a greater sense of freedom of tone and style and plot. And I think the most important element of that is probably just in Aphra herself. Emma, I know we've talked about this before, but we continue to do it because it's that important. What are some of the main elements of what makes Aphra so unique?
Yeah, so Aphra's significance to Star Wars, and not even just to Star Wars, but also to comics in general, is that she's a queer character of color, which is, we love Aphra because she's sort of helping make queer women of color in Star Wars more common. Aphra's of Asian descent, and this comic book actually won the Outstanding Comic Book Award at the GLAAD Media Awards in 2020, which is absolutely groundbreaking, not only for a piece of Star Wars media to win that award, but also to have Aphra be that groundbreaker in comics in general is so unique and so special, and we love her for that.
Yeah, we're really hoping that. We've seen it. We now have the dramatization. We now have the book that just recently came out. What is it actually called this time? It's the
Dr. Aphra audiobook original.
Yes, the audiobook original on the script of the audiobook of the comic. That's the order that I was looking for.
This thing right here.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Yeah, that nice new book that just hit news book stands last week. Make sure if you head to utini.com, you can even order it from there, and we get a little bit of kickback with our affiliate code.
You can also head to
surprisingly enough.
I say you can also head to
ahead.
utini.com/audible and get a free audiobook and experience it in the original audio drama format, which is, I think, to be fair, the best way. Like, I wouldn't, like, for this Dooku Jedi Lost, it's literally a script. Like, I would not read this as like my primary way to experience it, but if that's your thing, you do you. But yeah, you can
I agree.
do Audible and do the audio drama.
Yeah, you know what?
If you
the absolute best way to read it, in my opinion, is to listen to it while you follow along with the script. I did that for Dooku, and it was an amazing experience. Yeah.
Yes, this book is set up just like Dooku Jedi Lost. So you've got scene settings, you've got all these sorts of other shorthand that really make up the scene, but that kind of take you out of the story. So if that sort of thing doesn't suit you, or you might get distracted by that, then maybe I would definitely recommend picking up an Audible subscription and trying it out there. And while this trade paperback is her first comic appearance, it's not actually when we were introduced to Aphra. Aphra was actually introduced in Darth Vader #3 in 2015, and she has a run-in with our favorite Sith Lord there, and has a whole arc there before this actual trade paperback is released. So that was actually something that I did not know that when I originally picked this up. I thought it was all connected. So that was something that as I was going back and researching for everything that I learned. So before you get into this, let's go ahead and just real quick, let's just give first impressions, and if you want to give a rating, just like the Living Force does, we'll go ahead and give a rating. Caleb, we'll go ahead and start with you.
You want to start with me? Like, initial gut reaction, it's good, but the problem is I know it could be a lot better, so I'm going to give it like a 7 out of 10.
Okay, 7 out of 10. Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, so we to pull back the curtains real quick, we kind of test run this show before we started things, and I think I gave it a 7 or an 8. I'm gonna stick with 7. Like, back then I hadn't read as far into the full run as I have now, and that's colored my opinion a little bit. I think it definitely is really good now, but it gets even better. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the 7, like Caleb said.
Emma, are we sticking with the 7 trend here?
No, I think I'm going to give it a little higher. I think I'm going to give it a 7.5. Yeah, I agree that the series does get better, and so that does, looking back on this, it does color your opinion. But I thought that this was a great introduction to her solo series, and obviously we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good, not great, but not bad either, and that's always good.
Yeah, I actually agree with just about everything you said. I was also going to give it a 7.5. I love Aphra in this book. The story, the tale that she goes on, it's okay. I've read some of the other things that she's got, and it's kind of hard because we are know what other stories that she goes on, and so I kind of, it's hard for me to not think of those other stories, and so I agree. I'm also going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. So now, Caleb, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about who Aphra actually is in this book, and then we can go ahead and get into the plot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Shelley Lona Aphra was first, as we said, introduced in Darth Vader camp as a companion to his rampage, kind of like just a sidekick almost, but the best way to describe her is she is first introduced there and also semi-introduced with the opening gambit here. She's definitely a rogue archaeologist a la Indiana Jones, but a lot more morally gray. So the Vader comic starts off after A New Hope, after the destruction of the Death Star. He ends up conscripting her, kind of forcing her to do a lot of bidding so he can do a lot of secret work in the shadows. Then she's joined on by her 2 murderous droids who are usually some of the best parts of this whole series. 000, an interrogation droid, and BT-1, a tank on wheels. So at the end of that Darth Vader series, she manages to avoid the fate that befalls every single person who ever works with Darth Vader and fakes her death at Darth Vader's hands, and she escapes to try to start her brand new life over. So that's where Dr. Aphra 2016 Volume 1 starts. She's faked her death and she's trying to get a new lease on life. So the opening, we're going to do a rough summary, kind of go over all these steps here, give you an idea of what's happening here. So, we dive in a little bit more, we all have like a quick refresher. So Dr. Aphra 2016 Volume 1 plot summary.
He puts on the hat.
The first issue, exactly. The first issue, as I said, starts with an opening gambit, much like Indiana Jones, as our hero acquires an artifact she hopes to flip for credits for her new ship. So the instant drama is she has bought a brand new ship, but still has to pay it off. So she goes to her Narco Prime, kind of where her doctorate was earned, where she can sell whatever artifact she wants because she has a doctorate, but it has been suspended. She can no longer sell anything for its original value. She's desperate, like, who suspended my my doctorate? And it's very instantly revealed that the one who did it was Dr. Aphra, her very own father. So that's the cliffhanger there. Issue 2 starts with the reason for her father's interference. He has been spending his entire life looking for a sect of the Jedi called the Ordo Aspectu, kind of a really weird, ancient 1,000-year-old sect. He needs to help to find them. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of snippy dialogue, but they finally decide and are armbarred into going. So he says, it's simple, it's an in and out job. We just need to go to this little place called Yavin 4, pick up a few scraps.
Nothing wrong could happen if you're going to head to Yavin 4, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
It's not like there's a giant wreck of a moon-sized space station there.
No. So we pick up with issue number 3. The Aphras make their way to Yavin 4 and are, surprised by one Aphra is surprised, one's not so much, by a large Imperial presence there. So they have to find their way into the temple to find where their next step goes. So they use Black Chrysanthemum, their giant Wookiee crazy bounty hunter, to make a distraction while they sneak in. And then from there into issue 4, they find this giant big beaming clue, which is a Easter egg we'll touch on later. But then they have to make their way through the temple, get out of there, and head to their next stop on their journey, which Emma will touch on in issue number 5.
Yes, so they are in the citadel of the Ordo Aspectu. And they find there is space and debris, nothing very exciting. The walkways are crowded with dead bodies and ruined droids. It's kind of depressing, to be honest. So they're attacked from the rear by stormtroopers, and the pair of doctors press on to the inner sanctum of Rur, the leader of the Ordo Aspectu. And the droids and Chrysanthemum bravely take Aphra's ship to bail. Of course they do. And this issue ends with them inserting the crystal into the central computer, which awakens Eternal Rur, and Tyler will pick up the last issue in this volume.
Yes, Eternal Rur, or as I was thinking when I was reading this, Zordon from the Power Rangers, kind of appears above them and kind of is like, what time is it? Where am I? What is going on? And they he's not really happy about knowing that he's been shut down. So he's going to kill the Aphras, and the quick tongued Dr. Aphra says, look, I'll tell you when it is if you don't kill us. Come to find out, the central computer is Rur the Immortal himself, whose consciousness was transferred to a crystal that can control any droid he wants. This is obviously is going to be a bad thing. This leads to a desperate struggle between the possessed droids, the stormtroopers, and the doctors. So Aphra uses a fallen lightsaber, which, to the horror of her father, picks up the lightsaber and is actually able to shut down the system and escapes with the crystal. Her father and the commander of the Imperial forces after the rest of the Imperial forces drop into space. After they were able to finally escape with her name now cleared, Aphra is able to pay off her ship. Chrysanthemum reappears, and together with her droids, they set out in pursuit of another big score, and that ends the main story of this trade paperback. So there was a lot more detail that's in there, but that kind of talks about the overarching story. And so I want to take a moment and kind of open this up to discussion. And really, one of the things that I noticed the most about this, and this is the thing that I think that I enjoyed the most, was the balance of humor and darkness that was in this book. I mean, there was humor in every single page, but the humor was found in 000 and BT taking pleasure in killing a guy in a bathroom. I mean, like that's what what makes Dr. Aphra so entertaining to me. Jacob, what were some of your thoughts on the tone and the humor in this book?
Yeah, it's definitely such a shift from what we're used to with Star Wars. Like, right now I'm reading release order books, and like right now in Star Wars I'm reading Burning Seas and like Hope Lost and all these like really hardcore, like heavy hitting stories. And then I get the like reprieve of Dr. Aphra. It's like coming in, doing going on some shenanigans. Like, if you think this arc is crazy, like just wait for how much more insane it gets. It's such a breath of fresh air and such a tonal shift from what we're used to that I love it. I think it serves a great purpose in the whole like Star Wars Marvel publishing line right now.
I definitely it has this if Solo didn't have all the behind the scenes drama, I feel like this is what the movie Solo was going for. Is this sort of humor. There were times that I thought, okay, it's a little sitcom-y because they're like, she's got a quick joke for every single thing, especially in like books 4 and book 5. She seemed to have a comedic comeback for every single thing, but I loved the times where she points a gun at her dad and her dad's like, "You're not gonna kill me. I'm your dad." And she's like, "You're right. 000, your turn." And he's like, "Oh yes, I get to kill somebody." And then she's like, "Wait, no, I can't do that." And he's like, Did you just like punk me like about letting me torture somebody? That's how rude. And then you see like the one flash of C-3PO in 000 comes out because he says how rude, and I haven't listened to the audio drama yet, so I still hear C-3PO in my head. That was pure C-3PO for me. Emma, what are your thoughts on the tone of the book?
Yeah, so as great of a character as Aphra is on her own, this volume desperately needed the relief that BT1 and 000 bring. Because it is kind of heavy with her and her dad's relationship, and they're trying to figure it out, but then they're killing a guy in the bathroom, so it's okay, and I think they lighten it up. And additionally, like you were saying about Aphra wanting 000 to kill her dad, and then she's like, "Oh no, wait." It sort of allows us to see Aphra's more moral side, when maybe if the droids weren't there, she wouldn't be as moral, which I know sounds a little backwards, but I think that's just how Aphra kind of functions in a way.
Yeah, she needs someone worse than her around her so she can feel better about herself.
Exactly.
What do we think about the direct, quote unquote, direct spin on our traditional group of heroes from the original trilogy. I mean, you've got Han, you've got Chewie, you've got the droids. I mean, do we like this dark counterpart, or do we say, maybe instead of a protocol droid, maybe we do have, a gonk droid or something? Like, how do we like that sort of direct mirror element to that? Caleb, I'll let you go first.
It could have been really bad. It could have been really obvious. And Dr. Aphra, we describe herself as like she's Indiana Jones, but evil. But the characters have given enough reach and enough development so that they're not just a stark, evil version, goatee-defied bad people. There's a lot more nuance to them, and we have a lot more time to develop them. So it's not just like they decided, what if the original trilogy, but evil button. It's, a lot more developed. So they could have been really, really grating, but I think they've well stepped over the line into these are our own unique characters, and they're telling unique and interesting stories. I think that's the big thing, is they're not running through the original trilogy, but evil, again, they have their own stories and have their own places to be developed at.
Yeah, I think Vader Down, which was earlier, was a little bit of it's evil C-3PO, like especially when you see them directly interacting. But I think since then, 000 has definitely grown a lot and become his own character.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And regarding just sort of the evil original trilogy counterparts, I didn't mind it here. I don't think that it can be done again in the great way that it was done here. Yeah, because it was done perfectly here. It's not too obvious, but it's obvious enough. There's not too much a connection, but there's connection enough. And I think they did it respectfully to the original trilogy characters too, which is important.
Do you think, I mean, and this is all sort of speculation, do we think that made it a little, I don't want to use the word easier, but this being the first comic focused character that isn't from a Star Wars movie, do we think that the fact that there is so much similarities and so much of we can sort of think about what would Chewbacca do, but if he wasn't good? Do you think that maybe played a role in potentially some of the storylines and having this kind of story, not Aphra herself, because Aphra by herself is great and is the strongest part of this, but maybe allowed the story to kind of get fleshed out a little bit more. Jacob?
Yeah, no, I was definitely not typing and definitely did not miss the prompt. So if you just want to toss that to maybe Emma, what do you think?
Yeah, so Aphra on her own, like Tyler said, is great. And I think having the droids, having her father, having her doctorate taken away, tests her on all sorts of different levels. That, to me, it's important that despite this being her solo comic, that it's not just her, because she needs to be tested in these ways. And the other thing I'll mention about this comic and with her counterparts is that this is Magna Tolvan's first appearance, and she's very important later on in the Dr. Aphra comics. And so I find it interesting that, because I hadn't read this in a while, and I kind of forgot she was introduced this early on in the series. And I find it interesting how Aphra's kind of questioning, like, okay, is the Empire really bad? Is my dad really bad? Is anybody really bad? So I found all that interesting, and that couldn't have come out if she didn't have her counterparts with her.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Dr. Aphra is definitely the better with her characters, but let's talk about the character of Dr. Shelley Lona Aphra a little bit more. Let's dive into a little bit more of her storytelling about like her inner workings, for lack of a better term. A lot of us have read past this, so we have a lot more stronger idea of who she is as a character. But let's talk a little bit about some of the actions she takes. we like to talk in Star Wars about light side versus dark side because that happens a lot, especially for Jedi and Sith characters. That's such a powerful dynamic, but it's a lot more nebulous when we come to like Han Solo's and Dr. Aphra's here. So like, let's talk about some of these issues. Like in issue 1, towards the end, there's a dilemma with the Absurian symbiotes, and she devises a solution essentially just to steal this hidden work from another professor just so she can take the power away from him, but more importantly advance her own career. What do we think about that? Jacob, you can't get away now.
Dang it, I have to talk about okay, it's like I'm here to talk about Star Wars or something. Yeah, I think when it comes to Aphra's moral compass, I think the like in-universe explanation vacillates depending on what she needs, and like she's a complex character. It's just she lives in a gray area, and that's fine. She is not Luke Skywalker, she is not Darth Vader, but I think the cynical view of it is she is what the writer needs to be in that scenario. So if the writer needs a good guy, she's gonna be a good guy, and if the writer needs her to be bad, she's gonna be bad. It kind of just, it's gonna go back and forth. But I think even removing myself from that cynical point of view, I think that's what makes her interesting, because you just don't know what she's going to do. She might be presented with a scenario, and where I always know how Luke Skywalker is going to respond in a given scenario, I never know how Dr. Aphra is going to respond. I think that chaotic energy is exciting, and it's something different. So I like it.
Chaos. Yeah, I agree. This is why she gives me such Han Solo vibes, specifically A New Hope Han Solo vibes, because we're never really sure, like, okay, is Han gonna help the rebellion? Is he just gonna run away? And I think that this is why she draws comparisons to Han Solo. I don't know. That was just a thought that I had, and
the Han Solo is just like very obviously, Han Solo could have been Dr. Aphra if he had worse company. Like the reason Dr. Aphra works so poorly and plays so meanly with our characters is because her droid companions are murder bots, and her old boss was Darth Vader. Like if Han Solo was put into her situation, he'd probably be just as twisted and just as chaotically evil.
Oh, for sure.
So you mean if Han Solo wasn't trying to chase Leia the whole time, then he would be Dr. Aphra, basically? I mean,
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
he's got his motivations, and that's fine with me.
See, but I'll come a little bit to Dr. Aphra's defense here, because in the example that you had mentioned with the symbiotes, I think there's a large part of that, and I think that's what this is another element that makes her such a relatable character is Sava is just mean to her. He's like, you disgrace the archaeological profession, and I would never allow you to pass strictly because you're you, and kind of attacks her personally, and it's that motivation, which is like, all right, well, fine, well, I'm smart enough, I'm gonna flip the script here, and I'm like, and all this stuff that you're not supposed to have, and oh, by the way, you're not supposed to have it, I know you're not supposed to have it, so I can come in here and steal this crap, and it's not like you're going to say anything about it, and I'm going to go and I'm going to use it for myself. So it's a morally dark area for maybe a morally white cause. Maybe am I convincing anybody of that?
No, if she didn't get anything from it, she probably wouldn't have done it. In fact, her good friend is like, oh boy, I don't notice, but you secretly planned all this evidence. I'm going to spend the rest of my life finding out. And she's like, you go, girl. Yeah, absolutely. Waste your life.
Yeah, go do that. By the way, somebody's calling me from nowhere. I gotta go. Bye. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. If Aphra's initial dissertation topic didn't go up in flames, do you think she would have even done anything about it?
Eventually, she probably would have gotten it so she could sell it.
That's I feel like I feel like her two main motivations there are, one, she's screwed and needs something to publish her doctorate on, and then two, she hates Sava Tutniks and just wants to screw him over. And if the if his thing was less illegal and less harmful, I don't think her situation would have changed. It would just change on how we look at it.
John Dutch
Exactly.
Vander in the chat says her one-liners are so much better than Han Solo's. Yeah, I'll have to
I
give her that one.
agree.
I think
Yeah.
she's just like, let's face it, Han Solo's kind of really bad at his job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily for him, he stumbles upon moral compass Luke, and everything goes right for him. Now, if that doesn't happen, is he as successful as Aphra? Probably not.
Exactly. Now,
I mean, who knew that space archaeology was so corrupt? I mean, can we talk about that for a second? Like, everybody who works in space archaeology seems to me to be corrupt, and that seems pretty horrible.
I mean,
guess-
it is grave robbing. I mean, let's just
Yeah.
put it out there.
no,
Sure.
It's like when he like stole she stole the lightsaber. It's like your dad's just like, what are you doing? It's like, well, someone's gonna buy it. It's not doing anything right here.
Yeah,
No.
right.
Speaking of people who put her down the wrong path in nature versus nurture, instead of talking about Dr. Aphra, let's switch gears here and talk a little bit more about Dr. Aphra,
Yes.
Senior.
Oh yes, not confusing at all.
Yeah, so Dr. Aphra, Senior being her father, the one who kind of arm bars her and goosenecks her into doing this whole goose chase. What about him? Where does he stand in the middle of this? Emma, do you have any points on this?
Yes, I have some strong feelings about Dr. Aphra's father. I dislike him quite a bit because you should not blackmail your own child. That's wrong. You just shouldn't do it. He lost me there. And that happened obviously in issue 1. So he lost me pretty early on. Additionally, he's a little bit neglectful. He's working on the Ordo Aspectu stuff when Chelly's little. I mean, Chelly and her mom, they have to like move away because he's so crazed. And he doesn't really seem to care about anything but the Ordo Aspectu. I lost respect for him for that as well. So that's just 2 big strikes for me. And I think
But his reasoning, you have to keep that in mind. His reasoning for focusing so much on the Order of Spectre, though. What was his? Did he say was his reasoning?
I don't even remember. That's how much I blocked him out.
Wait, That's it's like the big emotional core of the whole arc. He went after the Order Expectu because he thought the galaxy was so screwed up with the Empire ruling that he thought if he could bring back the Jedi, he could save the galaxy for his daughter.
See, okay, that rings a bell. So this is interesting to me because you're right. That is a huge core of the story, and I think maybe that's why in other words, he
John
was
Dutch
so
Vander
off-putting.
with another good comment in the quote: "Shades of Galen Erso."
Yes. Oh, that's a great comparison.
I mean, Galen still made
Yes.
the Death Star. At least this guy didn't do that.
That's a great comparison.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah,
It's a great-
when you boil down, neglecting your child is much less worse than creating a galaxy-fearing super weapon. I'm just gonna throw that out
But
there.
the super weapon was going to be created anyways, and instead he put a flaw in the super weapon that would have been created by someone else if he wasn't there.
I mean, tell that to
That's his whole
Alderaan. That's all I'm
purpose.
saying.
I might
Yeah.
not like Dr. Aphra Senior as a character. As a character developed, I loved the arc because I just like what Emma says. As soon as you see him, he is an absent parent who is we're told is basically responsible for his mother's death, basically responsible for his daughter's psychological problems, basically responsible for all the a lot of bad things, and so you hate him. And I agree with you, Emma. At the beginning, I hated him, but
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that by the end I didn't, but I appreciated the ability to sit there and say, okay, well, let me sit and think for a moment and at least I at least understand his thought process. I might not agree with it, but at least I understand it.
That's a good point. But to dive into a little bit more, if he had succeeded at the end. Spoiler warning, he doesn't. The Order of Espectu is a giant waste of his life. But if he had succeeded and found this like ancient sect of Jedi that could have, helped restore balance to the galaxy and restore balance to the Force, would it have been worth it?
I could make it. I mean, we don't have enough time, but I could make an argument that it might have been.
I mean, it's just do the ends justify the means, but with more steps. I mean,
yes.
Is it okay to leave your daughter if you can save the whole galaxy? I would say probably. I mean, Luke Skywalker inadvertently gets his aunt and uncle killed by going off and chasing adventure and saves the galaxy in the process. I mean, is that worth it?
We also get into, we're not going to get off on too much of a tangent here, but by destroying the Death Star, he also destroys every single person and thing on the Death Star.
But they're evil, so their lives don't count.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Exactly. They didn't have faces. They all had face plates on.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Do the lives of the few, like whatever, justify the lives of the many?
The needs of the many justify
the
sacrifice of the few. Live long and prosper, all like that.
I think
Excuse you. This is a Star Wars podcast.
Excuse me. I thought I was being a nerd here, and I wanted to flex.
Wait a minute. So you're dressing like Indiana Jones. You're quoting Star Trek. What is going on?
I know. What's the next franchise that's going to come in here?
Are you going to pull out? Are you going to pull a TARDIS now too?
I fell off that fandom a long time ago.
But just to kind of like wrap up my thoughts about Aphra's father, because I came out of here a little strong. Something he was so off-putting to me that I feel like it affected how I read the story. Just because, like Jacob was saying earlier, I didn't even get the main point of why he was even looking for the Ordo Espectu. I completely forgot about it because I was so off-put by him. But at the same time, I feel like you're supposed to be off-put by him, but not to the degree that I was. And I think it's really just the whole blackmailing thing. I won't say it again, but I will. Don't blackmail your kids. It's wrong.
Put that on a shirt.
Put that on a shirt.
Says, "Do not blackmail your kids."
So,
I
we talked about. Go ahead.
I just think the big thing with me is I draw strong ties between him and Anakin, in that they both had reasons for what they did. Like with Anakin trying to take down the Jedi Order and joining with Palpatine, they both did it for what they thought was the right reasons. They were trying to sacrifice a lot to save their family. It's just they were misled and did the wrong things, even though it was maybe for the right reasons. So I don't know. I think there's a small similarity between Dr. Aphra Sr. and Anakin in just what they were trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's take a little step back from these morally complex characters and talk about a little bit more morally straightforward characters, which is Rur the Immortal. Like, obviously, kind of the antagonist of the last couple of issues. Like, what was going on there? Is a quest for immortality gone very wrong? The dangers of mechanics and computer power overwhelming on the came to singularity. What about Rur? What was the issue with him?
I feel like just in general, we're kind of taught to feel that cheating death and immortality in Star Wars is usually bad. Like Palpatine, bad. Legends Palpatine, bad. Like
and naked.
Yeah, and naked. Darth Plagueis, bad. Like and then like was it the Darth Vitati or whatever, the Old Republic guy, also bad. Like anyone that's like trying to like unnaturally extend their life, it's usually a bad thing. And I think that's kind of what we're shown here. Like Rur goes out of his way to try and extend his life, and by doing that, I don't know if I don't think he was probably a bad guy to begin with, but just the whole process of trying to do something that's unnatural and against like the Force and everything just kind of corrupted him. So just don't do it.
So in Jacob's playbook for evil in the Star Wars universe, start small. Is that what you're saying?
Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. You're right though. Immortality is a theme in Star Wars, and this is no different. It didn't turn out any different. Rur is so confusing to me because he sort of passes himself off as a Jedi, yet does these very un-Jedi-esque acts. And so he does confuse me quite a bit, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I put a note here, and let's tease this out a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's in the kind of almost a throwaway line. Ruhr's talking about, he's telling the Aphras about his history. He says, after the Intuvian conflict, there led to a peace between the Jedi and the Order Aspectu, and that the Jedi were kind of overseers to make sure they weren't doing anything like, dark force heresy sort of things. And that just opens up like a weird like book of like, okay, were the Jedi 1,000 years ago okay with weird sects of like other force users? And the Order obviously had lightsabers and Jedi robes, but they seem to be outside of the whole Jedi canon. So like, does that mean that there were other like approved sects of Jedi out there?
Well,
this kind of reminds me. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Emma.
Okay, I just want to say really quickly that kind of reminds me of the Jedi way. Is it the way Seeker? I always get them mixed up with the Wayfinder from the Rise of Skywalker. But it kind of reminds me of that because the way I just got mixed up again. The way Seeker or Wayfinder, Wayseeker, right? Yeah, it's Wayseeker. The Wayseekers,
yeah. The
Wayseekers in the High Republic are kind of outside of the Jedi Order in that they kind of are independent with themselves, yet are still connected to the Force. So that kind of reminds me of the Ordo Aspectu and how they might be a little bit more independent of the Jedi, but Jedi adjacent. Tyler, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say was also interesting that Ruhr apparently seemed to be okay with the ceasefire, but if you remember, it was when they wanted to get like more in depth, like, no, we really need to come in here and understand what you guys are doing. That's when he was like, no, that's not happening. You cannot come here and get an even more in-depth look. And it's a question that I have is how clearly the Ruhr that the Aphras meet is insane. That's one way you could describe it. But was he that way because he was trapped in a computer for thousands of years, or was he that way prior to being uploaded into that computer?
It makes a point of him saying that after the crystal Ruhr the Immortal, gained his consciousness, like his own physical body, the ghost of him, like died trying to stop him and keep him from expanding. So it seems like the moment his soul or his thought process was taken out of his body, that's when his like morality seemed to have faded.
I think it's like I'm gonna steal something from like Falcon Winter Soldier right now, like where it magnified him. I think human Ruhr was never pure. He had some faults in him, and this process kind of just magnified those, similar to like the super soldier serum in that show, where we see all those cracks start to show through when he goes through this process. I don't think he was completely terrible beforehand. I just think it brought out the worst in him.
I agree with that assessment because
I can see that. Yeah.
Maybe like being inside the computer, maybe it kind of like went to his head. I know that he doesn't really have a head anymore, but quote unquote, went to his head, and he sort of was a little overconfident with his powers, and that sort of amplified the sort of Jedi sins he was sort of feeling, so to speak.
Yeah. Another quick tangent here. Now that after Ruhr the Immortal was uploaded, was he using the Force to control those robots, or was there some other form of technology there? Like, was he using Wi-Fi, or like it doesn't really explain? Or is he able to use the Force as a crystal?
That's a great question.
Is there like any Force using robot in Legends?
There has to be. That sounds so Legendsy.
I know there's robots that think they can use the Force. I know that is a thing for sure, but
I'm wondering if in the process of being uploaded, he was clearly a Force user. But now that he is a machine, what he feels is the Force is really just data stream. And it's the same action for him. It's this invisible, thing that surrounds us, but it's not the Force because you're not interacting with living things anymore. But it's because he's crazy, because he's now a machine AI, basically. It kind of feels the same to him, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what I was. Spoilers for Legacy of the Force. Like, it's been a long time since I've read that, but I'm pretty sure like Anakin Skywalker is like, or not Anakin Skywalker, Anakin Solo is like kept in a computer after he died, his consciousness, and then like thinks he's using the Force, but he's actually not. And it's just like, yeah, like machines and all that stuff. Jared, if Jared's still here, he could correct me, but yeah, I think that's what happened in Legends. So there is a precedent for it. It would make sense, like, that's your only way of perceiving. That's the only way your mind could like rationalize what's happening around you. If you're used to using the Force and you're doing things that kind of look like you're using the Force, you're probably gonna think you're still using the Force.
Kind of like a phantom limb syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we got time, I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the artwork, since this is a comic book sort of thing. So like, was there anything, I know we already had a chance to talk about our favorite sort of panels, but do you guys recall any like great panels that really stood out to you? I could get the ball rolling because in issue 6, when they're, after Shelley like chops the Ruhr crystal in half, there's a big like shattering, and like you can see the edges of the panels themselves start to break apart, and they do some fun things with the panel layout as it's like, yeah, well, I think you almost had there, or you're scrolling through some stuff, just like some really great yeah, and I think in the next couple of panels, like as the thing is falling apart, the panels themselves are cracking at the edges. Yeah, see if you can kind of look in there, like there's some like roughness to the panels themselves, and that was just a really engaging and enjoyable thing. I like it when they do fun things with that.
I appreciated the color palette change towards the end of this book with like the really the green and red overtones of the environment towards the end of the book. Those were some of the things that really popped out at me. I mean, as far from a character, I mean, everything else was, I've read it a couple times, and so it's the wildness of the art is kind of wears off me. But the color of the background and the detail in the background was really something that spoke to me.
Yeah, for me, there was a panel, I believe we have shown it earlier, with Ruhr, his essence sort of like coming out into space. Yeah, right there. That's just so cool to me, how you can kind of see the face and the light, but it's kind of the light and you're not sure if it's like a real face. I thought it was just a really cool use of colors.
Very Wizard of Oz.
Yes, very Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Evil Zordon.
Jacob, you've been really on top of pulling up all these things, all these wild last minute requests. Anything you want to talk about?
I'm just a sucker for splash pages. Like, you're probably gonna see that a lot with my art of the week, and I really like the I wish we got more of the Citadel of Ruhr. It's really cool, kind of like embedded in this asteroid sort of thing, and just like the architecture of this looks so cool. And then we don't really, honestly, what we see here doesn't really seem to match up with what we actually see when they get in the base. But this page, I think, looks great. I love we got a few of these, like, where it ends an issue on then, like, zooming in on, like, a new location, just like they did with the Yavin 4. And, yeah, really, overall, I really like the art on this. And that's just part of the reason why it's such a great book, and part of the reason why it's in our Foundational 5.
Absolutely.
Jacob, that art that you were just showing off, the sort of asteroid city type of thing, it really reminded me of the Ring of Kafrene from Rogue One for some reason. I got that vibe. Yeah. Yep.
All right. And one other thing about art, what were your favorite character designs? Was there any like people in this that they showed off here that you thought, oh boy, I want that piece of outfit there?
I mean, I think the obvious one to say is Aphra, but I'm going to say Aphra because, I mean, can you imagine cosplaying and you got the electro tattoos and you've got the sweet goggles and the awesome, like, archaeologist jacket. It's so cool. And I think that her outfits throughout the entire series are always really, really cool. I mean, look at her, like her jacket, how it's kind of long and flowy, and she's got her, sort of scoundrel pants, like those Han Solo pants with the Han Solo belt, and her little helmet thing. I love it. I love the vibe.
If I'm going for what am I going to cosplay as, I would have to take, strictly because of the hat, I'd have to take the Saren handler at the beginning of the book, just because that's going to turn pages, or that's going to turn heads if you just walk into Celebration and you've got this huge, I think it was purplish, the hat
Gotcha.
and the glasses, and I'm stalling so that Jacob
here we
can pull it up.
go.
He's getting close. Almost there. There we go. There we
Yeah.
go. So I mean, that's just it's an interesting look. I mean, it's not the most memorable, but it's an interesting look.
Oh,
Tyler, if you wore that to Celebration, people would be so mad at you because they couldn't see anything in front of you.
Well, I mean, if I have a head that tall, then I might as well make sure and I would have to have some sort of cosplay underneath the hat to make sure I'm true to form and have the Saren, 2 foot tall head there as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the next one, I'm just gonna scroll through here, look at some art again. Well, so I don't have to go back and forth between scenes. I think the really cool character I definitely wouldn't cosplay her, because it's a woman, is Magna Tolvin. I really
don't
like
let
her
that
design.
stop you, Jacob.
Well, you know what? That's right. I can do whatever I want. I cannot pull this off though. So yeah, Magna Tolvin. I think this is a great design. I honestly, I think I like her art in like her, just the artist for her later in the series. But I mean, she's still so cool in her own right. So I think that's probably my favorite character design for
Sure enough,
this one.
Personally, I liked her design a little bit later on when she has like a full trench coat sort of thing, like down to her ankles. I like that look a lot. And then at the very end we had like Dr. Aphra, and she was in these like black jacket sort of biker outfit at the very end, when she's about ready to go out with Blacker Station and really make that money. I like that outfit a lot. So there's a lot of really fun character designs. And, if you like seeing costume changes, read the next issue, the next major series, and, Dr. Aphra and the Search for Cash. The Quest for Money, I think it was, where, she hosts a gala. So she dresses up a lot in different, high class outfits. It's a really fun series.
All right. Well, we're starting to get a little long here, and I want to make sure that we get into the Easter eggs, because I know that Jacob worked very hard on getting these Easter eggs, and so I'm going to let Jacob take over here, and so he can kind of wow us with all of the Easter eggs that he's found.
All right, guys. So if you want a little behind the scenes on how you do this Easter egg culling, what you do is just every time you see a proper noun in a Star Wars book, just look it up on Wikipedia, and you're probably going to find like 5 pages of something for it, at least in Legends. So Charles, I hope I make you proud. Here are the Easter eggs I've culled from this first volume. So the very beginning is a pretty clear Indiana Jones homage with the other archaeologists coming out of the tomb with something chasing behind him, and has a little treasure, and then also the end of the issue on Yavin 4 with the lights coming down from the sun is also a homage to I think Last Crusade.
Last Crusade.
There's like the rod with like the red lights and stuff like that. So then the Cosmos.
No, that was the first one, not Last Crusade.
Really?
Yeah, it was why am I blanking on it?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, it's Lost Ark.
Well, yeah, that one. All right. So then the Cosmotanic Steps is a location that she drops the crystal, or her dad drops the crystal off at the end of this issue. But that's where we first find Aphra. That's where Aphra hides from Vader in the 2015 series. When she fakes her death the first time, that's where she hides from Vader. It's not where the crystal is. That's a later Easter egg. The leader of the Ordu. This is the most crazy one I could find. So Trev, knock yourself out. The leader of the Ordu, Rur, and its location, Garn, are nods to Alan Moore's 1982 Legends comic Blind Fury and his Order of the Terrible Glare. The story was printed in Marvel UK's Star Wars Monthly 159. Yeah, that's What?
Deep
There
cut.
we go. There's the
40
deep cut.
years, 30 years ago, 40 years ago now. And then so another big Easter egg is the Maasai, which is an ancient race on Yavin 4. They built the temple that they're exploring, but they play a small role in canon publishing, but have an expansive backstory in Legends, and they were first mentioned in Marvel's Star Wars 25 from 1979. So their first appearance was a comic book, and here they are again. Then next, when speaking with Admiral Ozzel, Tolvin is reminded about her failure on Iadu. And Iadu, going back to Galen Urso conversation from earlier, is the planet where he dies in Rogue One.
Rip.
And then, yep. And then the last Easter egg, this is the crystal one. Quarantine World 3 makes an appearance as Dr. Aphra's father drops off the crystal. This would be this world was first shown in Darth Vader issue number 3, and it's where him and Aphra first met up. And this is also where the 000 personality matrix comes from. So that is our somewhat expansive list of Easter eggs in these 6 issues.
Very impressive
right.
stuff.
So
Yes, golf clap.
that's all of the discussion we have for this book. So now it is time to re-rate this book. As a reminder, we're going to go in the same order. So as a reminder, Caleb and Jacob gave it a 7, and Emma and myself gave it a 7.5. So Caleb, we're going to start with you after our discussion here. What is your new score?
Now that we've talked about it a bit more and that we've expanded on how important it is for the canon moving forward, I'll bump it up to an 8. I like round numbers. We'll just say it's an 8. It's a really good, solid start. Gets you a lot more interesting look at Dr. Aphra as a character and what she is and is not willing to do. And it sets it up for a lot better stories down the line. So obviously don't skip it. So yeah, I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
All right, up to an 8. Jacob, what about you?
I think I'm going to disappoint people and stay at a 7. I still really enjoy it. I know. It's still great. I really enjoy it. But just, yeah, now having read more Aphra, I just don't think I can give it as high a ranking just with what I know comes next. It is still a very enjoyable book. It's on our Foundational 5 for a reason. I would 100% recommend you checking it out. And if you haven't read it and you're for still some reason listening to this, you can pick it up in the YouTube description. We have links to all that. But yeah, I think for now it is a 7, but it's fantastic, and 100% recommend you read it.
All right, Emma, what about you? How are you scoring it now?
So I am increasing because I feel like that's just kind of what, something that I will always do on these roundtables is increase my score, even just a little bit. I'm going to give it a 7.8. I do not like round numbers because I don't know. It feels weird to give it an 8, but 7.5 is a little too low, so I'm going to give it a 7.8. I think I would rate it higher if I haven't already read the rest of the series, which is a common theme with all of our scores, is that looking back on it's just not as generally good as the other ones. It's not bad, but the other ones are such higher quality that it's hard to look back on this and give it a really high score. So it's not a knock against this volume. Like everybody said, it's great, and we obviously recommend it if you haven't read it yet. But it gets better, and I think that does color our ratings a little bit. So 7.8, still really good, really awesome volume, great conversation.
I am gonna have to leave my score where it is at a 7.5. It's entertaining. I love the characters, and it's a little bit deeper now that we've had a chance to discuss it. It's a little bit of a deeper story than I realized it was. But after rereading it, because I've reread it, I read it a couple weeks ago when we did our dry run, and then I read it again today, and the humor kind of sort of gets a little overhanded sometimes, and so it kind of takes away from I'm hoping. I have not read any more Dr. Aphra, so I'm as you all continue to talk about how amazing the books get, it actually is getting me very excited about it. I'm hoping there's a less is more and more subtlety with the humor moving forward. So I enjoy it. I'm very glad that, and I 100% support the fact that this is in our Foundational 5. but I'm going to keep it at a 7.5. It's still something that even with the 2020 book that I have read, that is a much more fast-paced story, and I enjoy that story more. But yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to read the rest of this title and read more of Dr. Aphra. So that is going to do it for episode 3 of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show here on YouTube. Make sure if you subscribe to the Utini channel and then turn on the notifications, you will make sure you are notified whenever us or one of the other podcasts of the Utini network go live. Next week, we are talking about art in Star Wars comics, so be sure to check in for that. If you like what you hear, we appreciate the love, and be sure to visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. We encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord. If you'd like to help support the show, you can find us on patreon.com/utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. We want to send a special thank you to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sanders on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command levels of Patreon. Thank you all for your amazing support. You can tweet us at the show at Cosmic Force Show. Make sure you tweet us your art of the week for next week, and maybe it will be featured on the show. You can also tweet the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jade 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thanks again to Emma, Caleb, and Jacob for hosting with me. Special thanks to all of you listeners for joining us. We truly appreciate it, and we will see you next week, and may the Force be with you.